And why do some organizations thrive, and some with seemingly similar talent, resources, opportunity fail? In his seminal book, Start With Why, Simon Sinek tells the story of Pierpont Langley, a noted astronomer and secretary of the Smithsonian Museum, and very well connected with close friends including Alexander Graham Bell and Andrew Carnegie. Thanks to his connections, Langley was able to capture the imaginations of the great and the good of the day with his dreams of powered flight. Indeed, the United States Department of Defense granted him $50,000 to fund his endeavors, and his team included some of the best engineers from the best schools of the day. Meanwhile, in Dayton, Ohio, Orville and Wilbur Wright were pursuing the same dream, but in stark comparison, they had no funding, no government support, and they relied solely on the income from their bicycle shop to fund their dream of flight. Not a single person on their team was a skilled or trained engineer. Most did not even have a college education. They had no publicity, and no one knew who they were. But despite these differences, on the 17th of December 1903 in North Carolina, the Wright brothers became the first people to take to the skies in a 59-second flight reaching altitudes of 120 feet. Langley, on the other hand, crashed on his first test flight and quickly lost interest in his quest for flight. In one of our main texts for this semester, Coos and Posner are looking to answer these very questions in their seminal research that began over 40 years ago and now include over 5,000 detailed surveys and 150,000 interviews in the same topic. How do people go about mobilizing others to make extraordinary things happen? The purpose of their work in the Leadership Challenge is to assist others in furthering their abilities to lead others to greatness. If you're in this class, you have an interest in these same ideas. Maybe you have dreams of furthering your career or projects. Maybe you are looking to make a difference in a small or large scale in the world today. And you know that to succeed, you will need others. You will need to be led by and to lead others to accomplish your goals. The Leadership Challenge is the most comprehensive work done on the subject, as they have asked and studied over and over across ages, gender, demographics, businesses, and countries. The answer that individuals have given to the question of what they did when they were at their personal best in leading others. As you may recall from the readings, K&P's first realization was that every answer involves some kind of challenge, a test for leadership, an opportunity for greatness, but also the possibility of failure. So I want you to think about, when were you at your personal best in leading others? What situation were you in? Who were your friends and colleagues, teammates in this situation? What did you do, or maybe someone else did, in leading the group to success of whatever kind was needed? K&P have presented an evidence-based operating system for how people guide others through adversity, uncertainty, turbulence, to triumph against overwhelming odds, to take initiative where there is inertia, and activate individuals and organizations in the face of stiff resistance. They can show what leaders did under challenging circumstances to succeed. They have studied this for 40 years, and they can tell us what we can do to put their leadership behaviors into practice and make a difference. K&P have developed the LPI, the Leadership Practices Inventory, to assess the frequency in which leaders use the 5 practices, and then have assessed that data as it correlates to the effectiveness of their leadership operating system. So let's dive into it. Let's start with a question for thought. Who would you consider as the best leader you have had the chance to interact with? A teacher, a coach, a family member, a boss, a community member. Take a moment, jot down some notes about this person, and as we go through the next lessons, I'd like you to keep them in mind. K&P in Chapter 1 are talking about when leaders are at their best. A lot of times young people are told, look at this leader. They are successful. Watch what they do. The problem is not everything they do is effective or appropriate behavior. K&P instead focused on the best of what people do, the actions that represents the highest standards of excellence. As a reminder, as we go through this chapter, I want you to continue to recall the time when you were at your best as a leader, and the time when you and others had to overcome or were successful as we read about the best practices. So K&P used the Personal Best Leadership Experience Questionnaire. It's 12 pages. It's 38 open-ended questions. And here are some examples that I'm going to pause and let you jot down some notes from the experience as answers to this question. Where did your personal best experience occur? When did it take place? How long was it from start to finish? What kind of project or undertaking was it? What was your specific role? What internal and external challenges did you face? I hope you are using the time in between clicking on the slides to jot down some notes about your best personal leadership experience and how you might answer these questions. What words describe how you felt at the beginning of the experience? Who initiated the experience? And what did you aspire to accomplish? Who was involved? What actions did you take to get people moving in the right direction? How did you overcome setbacks? What did you do to keep people motivated? What did you learn from this experience? What key lessons about leadership would you share with another person from this experience? Once again, jot down notes about your personal best leadership experience that came up as you went through these questions. Which questions were easier? Which questions were harder? Which questions had you not thought of before? You can also utilize the Brightspace chat board to share with your classmates some of your insights on your leadership experience and comment on others as well. After studying over 4.6 million of these questionnaires and thousands of interviews, K&P has noted that everyone has a personal best leadership story, and that leadership is an identical set of skills and abilities available to anyone. They validated that leadership matters. Let me say that again. They have validated that leadership matters. The frequency with which people engage in these leadership behaviors directly relates to the assessment of work group performance and leadership effectiveness. Direct positive correlation between the answers from direct reports of how effective their leader is and their perception of how often they engage in these leadership behaviors. Let me repeat that again. They have found a direct positive correlation between the answers from direct reports of how effective their leader is and the direct report's perceptions of how often they engage in these leadership behaviors, and that this frequency and correlation increases during times of extreme challenge. Leadership matters. And most importantly, K&P validates that leadership is not about personality. It is about behavior. It is not personality. It is about behavior. What are these leadership behaviors, or the 5 practices of exemplary leadership that we will study in depth this semester? They are: 1. Model the way. 2. Inspire shared vision. 3. Challenge the process. 4. Enable others to act. And 5. Encourage the heart. K&P called this an operating system for leaders everywhere. Behaviors that you can learn, that you can engage in, and that you can use in your own leadership journey. Number 1, model the way. Modeling behaviors you expect of others is a requirement. Through their daily actions, leaders demonstrate their deep commitment to theirs and the organization's beliefs. They set the standard. Setting the example is often about the power of simple things: spending time with someone, working side by side with colleagues, telling stories, being highly visible in times of uncertainty, asking questions to get people to think about values and priorities. Leaders model the way. 99% of direct reports who always observed their leader modeling the way would favorably recommend them to their colleagues as a good leader. Can you think of a time when one of your leaders modeled the way for you? What did they do? How did it make you feel? Inspire a shared vision. Number 2. People describe their personal best leadership experience as a time when they imagine an exciting and attractive future for their organizations, when they had faith and confidence in this dream of a better future. Leaders envision an exciting future full of potential. They understand the past, but also express optimism for the future. And people want to be part of the process of developing a better future. Leaders don't demand commitment, they inspire it. They develop a shared vision around a shared purpose. All of us want to be around someone who is positive with a shared vision. Can you think of those around you who perhaps are engaging in helping you see a shared vision, who are giving you encouragement and positive vibes about what the future will be like and how much you would like to follow them? And you can also think of those in your life who perhaps are the opposite, who instead are always negative, are always thinking about how hard things is and that things will never change. And how inspiring is that? The third step in the K&P's leadership challenge process and operating system is challenge the process. Every personal leadership experience involved in the K&P as they studied them was that there was a change to the status quo. That challenge is the crucible for greatness. And no one achieved their personal best by keeping the status quo. Less than 1 in 10 direct reports would recommend a leader who did not frequently challenge the status quo. Extraordinary teams are recognized by how they react to challenges and setbacks, and they use this opportunity to create an environment of growth, innovation, and change. These leaders inspire a climate of discovery and risk-taking and engage in a growth mindset. They create an atmosphere of idea generation to support those ideas and being willing to fail and learn from failure. The best leaders are also the best learners. They learn from errors and failures and they grow, and they inspire others to do the same. Can you think of a time when one of your best leaders challenged the process? And what did they do? And how did that make you feel? The next step in the operating system is enabling others to act. Greatness always requires team effort. It requires trust, positive relationships, collaboration, accountability. And one simple way that K&P determine how often engaged in this is actually how often they use the word we rather than I. Leaders foster collaboration through trust building and facilitating relationships. They know that people don't perform at their best if they feel alienated and dependent, as you probably understand as well. So leaders strengthen others by increasing self-determination and competence, and they empower others. The K&P data notes that motivation levels of direct reports increase in direct proportion to the extent that the leader provides them the freedom to decide how best to do their work. No micromanagers here. Can you think of a time when one of your leaders enabled you to act? And how did that make you feel? And did it make you more motivated and successful? The fifth and final piece of K&P's leadership challenge operating system is encourage the heart. Overcoming challenges and performing at a high level is exhausting. I'm sure many of you know this and have experienced it, maybe are experiencing it now. And leaders understand that they need to have encouragement and recognition and celebration and appreciation as part of their process. And when done authentically and from the heart, they can carry a group through these tough, exhausting times. In many ways, leaders describe this as the hardest part of the job because it requires the most honesty and sincerity. Encouraging the heart, part of the operating system. Can you think of a time when one of your leaders encouraged your heart, and how did that make you feel? These are the 5 practices that make up the operating system for leaders to perform at their best. Model the way, inspire shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, encourage the heart, and they make a difference. The data shows the direct correlation between how often leaders engage in the 5 practices and how they are considered by their direct reports to be one of the best leaders. Demographic factors such as age, gender, educational level, length of service, nationality, as well as organizational factors such as function, hierarchical position, industry, organizational size. All of these factors combined explain less than 1% of why people are engaged at their work. Yet, the K&P 5 practices account for over 40%. K&P have shown that people want to follow leaders who are credible, so they have administered the characteristics of great leaders survey to over 150,000 people. And what are these top characteristics? As you can see, the top 4 are honest, competent, inspiring, forward-looking. And looking at this chart, would you have agreed? Would you have chosen those 4 as your top characteristics? The survey has led K&P to the 2 laws of leadership. The first law: if you don't believe the messenger, you won't believe the message. Credibility and authenticity is essential to leadership. Do you know leaders who are credible? Here are some of the most common expressions people use for those. Practice what they preach. Walk the talk. Actions are consistent with their words. Put their money where their mouth is. Follow through on their promises. And do what they say they'll do. This last phrase leads to the second law of leadership from K&P, or DWYSYWD. Do what you say you will do. People follow others who are authentic and credible. What leaders do you know that you have found do what they say they will do? We will learn more farther along in the semester about each of these 5 practices. Later in this semester, we will dive into each one. We will look at the 10 commitments that are in there, and we will try to find a way to help you practice each of these so that you can engage in exemplary leadership. And we hope that by the end of this semester, not only will you know about the 5 practices and describe them and be able to tell us about them, but that hopefully you will also be able to engage in some of those behaviors and create an environment where you will grow and you will become an exemplary leader. As an activity today, for this week, I'd like you on the discussion board to discuss the following. How has technology and social media influenced the practice of leadership? Given what you've learned this week, the start of this semester, I'd like for you to sort of consider this piece of leadership that is changing in this century about technology and social media, and provide some of your thoughts as to how they are influencing the practice of leadership today as compared to in the past. Thanks.